It costs that much cause it takes me fucking hours. It costs that much cause I don't have superpowers. So you need to pay for my skills cause exposure doesn't pay the bills. It costs that much cause it takes me fucking hours. You need to pay for my skills cause exposure doesn't pay the bills. It costs that much cause it takes me fucking hours.
Shut up, bitch!
We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
School and all James Woods can say is, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. When a Bowen turned into a vampire, all James Woods could say was, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. When he became Peter's best friend, they sat around the house and said, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. And you know that James Woods practices lines real well, but everything that he reads becomes real hard to spell. Everyone tries to help him, but the words just won't come out. There's only one thing he can think of, and it's what comes out his mouth. Ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. When he comes out of his house, the women scream and shout. Ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. When they know that he's nectar, the best of them all, when he says, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. Reese's Pieces on the floor and watch him come a saying, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. And you know that James Woods practices lines real well, but everything that he reads becomes real hard to spell. Everyone tries to help him, but the words just won't come out. There's only one thing he can think of, and it's what comes out his mouth. Ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. When he comes out of his house, the women scream and shout. Ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. Ooh, a piece of candy.
Fucking thing sucks.
Welcome, fellow travelers, on this internet journey we call Extra Bulla Live, or Extra Bulla Live, however you want to say it. It's up to you. It's Latin, so, it means outside the bubble. So, pronounce it the way you want. It's okay. We don't judge. Okay, I do judge, but I judge secretly. I don't judge openly because I don't want to get hate mail, if that's still even a thing. Good morning. We have folks here. Les Bones, one of our producers, is here. Good to see you, brother. Who else is here? Stargazer Steph on Twitch. Good to see you. We got Miss Jimmy in the chat. She's on Twitch too. So we've got our Twitch contingent representing tonight, and I think that's it for right now. Pretty much folks will start streaming in. We got Willie Bragg too. He said, I am looking forward to tonight's program. Me too, Willie. That's a good segue. In fact, let's go ahead and bring in our guest for this evening. He was a congressional candidate out of Idaho. He was also a veteran of the military. Hang on just a second. He's an activist. He works on marijuana legalization organization called Kind Idaho in Idaho. He's also anti-war. 3 tours in Afghanistan, 1 Iraq, Philippines deployment, Haiti, and a father of 5. We have never given somebody that much of an intro before, brother. So I hope you feel honored that we took like half the show to introduce you. So
nothing funner than a 45-minute introduction. It doesn't leave much to follow with.
Right.
But
well, you wrote it.
I'm glad.
That was your words.
They were my words. They were my words. But I'm glad to have Jimmy and Willie Bragg on tonight. Awesome.
Right.
Part of my support crew over at KRTD Media. I've been working with Jimmy for about a year now.
Yeah, it's a little over a year since she's been in the mix. So we like Jimmy. Jimmy's good people. She works hard. She's got great ideas, and she's just a super nice person. So, but don't tell her we said that because she'll get like the big head, and we don't want that to ruin her. We don't keep her grounded. So.
We need to give her the atta girl, every so often.
Right.
It's
Yeah, she does. She's under the weather tonight too, so we got to send out those positive healing vibes to her. So she says, "Stop blowing my ego. I'm working on it." California Fools. Good to see you.
Amazing talent, really. Really gifted.
Yeah, she's super. She's Cali girl too. She's out west, up in the mountains. I went for the mountains, but I got Coors banquet beer instead of I don't know, whatever she does. I think she smokes pot. She doesn't drink. She goes, I smoke pot too.
Well,
but I'm out of pot.
Everybody's got to have their thing, and the weed mom thing is a big thing right now. We're realizing that it's better than wine and Xanax for, taking the edge off of those high stress parent moments.
Definitely. And let's get into that. We're going to talk some libertarian stuff here in a moment too, but I definitely want to talk about Kind Idaho. We mentioned that in the intro for you. So let's see here. Let me see if I can go ahead and pull this up. And that's what she said. It's weird.
Brittany Hargis, she's our tech gal. She's the one who put together this website for us. And nice. Some of the animation she set up, it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. Let
me go ahead and put this in the chat too, so the kiddos can have it. Hopefully, it would help if I had my shit together here, but
It's all good. That's all good.
All right, we're fine. So let's look at this. So we believe that medical marijuana is more than just right to legalize. It's kind to legalize. Here's why. So this is going on in Idaho right now. So right now, Idaho,
Right.
it is like totally illegal, right? No medical,
Oh, totally.
no.
We do allow 0 THC CBD, you know, which is funny because we've actually allowed that for human consumption, although we've just gone and made it illegal for pets to receive it in some
Really?
weird Idaho FDA ruling. Really bizarre, actually. So last November, the Idaho version of the USDA came down and said, no more CBD for your pets. Yeah. Now the FDA ruling was about CBD for food animals. You know, don't put it into the cattle. Don't, you know, use it on the farm. You know, it's never intended for use with, or the ruling was for pets. But Idaho has decided that, yeah, it applies to pets too. So the CBD, so that the pet stores that sell CBD for pets have to pull their CBD lines. So yeah, Idaho's really weird about the whole hemp and marijuana byproduct stuff.
The hemp, I guess the hemp I can kind of understand. I mean, I don't like it, but I understand because, like, where I grew up, I guess Mississippi, in a kind of way, is just kind of like the Idaho of the South, right? It's just kind of like you have a lot of rural areas, and you have a lot. It's very conservative, and
or Idaho is the Mississippi of the Pacific Northwest. But yeah,
well, I was gonna. In the you know, because they're both beautiful states. Both have beautiful
absolutely.
scenery, good people too. It's like, you know, I always kid people about, like, you know, when they say, "Well, I'm from Indiana," I said, "Well, that's the Mississippi of the North," and they're like, "Oh, sad face," you know. And I'm like, no, it's you know, yeah, every state's got their good sides and their bad sides. So, but let's get back to this real quick. So it says here 68% of Idahoans actively support medical legalization, right? And that's
yes, absolutely.
And that's according to
that was actually done by one of our newspapers. Yeah, right there's the source for that.
And that's surveyusa.com.
Well, that was actually a poll by the Idaho Statesman, I think. And it was specifically Idaho residents and who supported
it.
It. So they gave us 4.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, 4 questions.
Put that. And
one of was, do you support medical marijuana? Do you support recreational marijuana? Do you support decriminalization of personal use of marijuana? And I think there was one other question that was involved in that. But we came back with the results that said 68% support medical, 14 aren't sure, and 18 actively oppose it. When it comes to legalization of recreational, we only had 48% support. Now we get an awful lot of arguments. Just go for rec, and it's like, no, dude, we don't have support for that. It's never going to happen in the state of Idaho under the current atmosphere. You know.
Well, you said we were talking about this before the show, and you said there's like what 48% for recreational, which is not a bad number. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much on par with what Mississippi has. And they just recently, last year, I mean, look, I always use Mississippi as a bellwether for anything progressive, right? If Mississippi does something progressive, then I know the rest of the country is going to do it. Because Mississippi is so
eventually,
hardcore, you know, and
like,
I would imagine like Idaho's the same way. You have a lot of conservative people in Idaho, right? Probably the same mentality, right?
Oh yeah. You know,
yeah.
And it's weird because in a lot of ways we're social conservatives, but we are voluntarily social conservatives. You know, for the most part, it's like we don't like the extreme behaviors that are in a lot of things, but at the same time, it's like, you know, it's your life. You go live your life. You know, it may not belong in our small communities. You may have to go to Boise or Salt Lake City to enjoy that kind of lifestyle. But, you know, go do you.
Yeah.
You know, so the overall value, religious values here, between the combination of Catholic, LDS, and Southern Baptist that migrated up after the Civil War, you know, you see a lot of very conservative practices, you know, culturally, that don't actually require legislation to make happen. Yet here we are in a world where people who've decided, well, we want to make sure it never happens here, so we're going to make sure that there's legislation so that the choice is absolutely denied the opportunity of ever being made. And it's like, yeah, that's not really the way we do things here, Mr. Dominionist.
Well, I mean, I've been fascinated with libertarians because okay, so a little quick background on me. I think I pretty much had my fill of the I was a Democrat my whole life.
Oh yeah.
My dad was a big fan of Jimmy Carter's, right? And love him, hate him, whatever. Jimmy was actually one of the people that actually helped veterans back in the day. My dad, I mean, your dad, you said your dad was a World War II veteran, right? And mine was too.
Well, my grandfather, my grandparents were,
your grandparents.
The service skipped a generation. But yeah, grandfathers came back from World War II. Jimmy did an awful lot in '76 for the Vietnam vets when they came back.
Right.
He was recovering from Johnson. He was recovering from Nixon. He's trying to create a whole new world that was post-Vietnam. So yeah, in a lot of ways, Jimmy did try and do an awful lot of things to recreate the American landscape as a post-military industrial complex, military adventurism that we experienced in Vietnam. And Jimmy was able to oversee things like the overturning of the draft, the removal of that. We ended Vietnam just before he came into office. So we were able to see that, between 76 and 80. And then you were also seeing changes in the way the VA loans process worked for Vietnam veterans coming out. That's when you saw a big surge in efforts for suburban movements of Vietnam veterans, getting them their own acre, their own house with 1,500 square feet for their beginning place, place for them to go ahead and set up families where they had space. They weren't living in, the brownstones, those townhouse arrangements. They're real popular with the urban environments, in the 70s. You saw all over the movies, you saw that whole flight to the country,
Yep.
So yeah, Jimmy was able to do an awful lot of really good things with that.
Yeah, my dad at the time, he had a medical discharge from the Navy. He didn't serve overseas. He went in the Navy, and he was one of these guys. He was just too tall to be on a ship, because I think at the time if you were like over 6 foot tall, you couldn't be on a ship because of the low overheads and stuff like that. My dad was like 6'2", but he was an auto mechanic.
So around knocking his head on everything.
Yeah, and his 6'4" son inherited that knocking into the head, especially when he lived in a trailer park for about a year or so. And if you ever lived in a trailer park and you're a tall person, you know what that's about. I thought I was a unicorn for a few weeks there, because every time I'd hit my head on the one point and the little knot on there. But so he ended up in Corpus Christi, Texas, as an airplane mechanic, and planes would come in from overseas that needed to be fixed and stuff like that. And my dad had to get like a he had to have like it was the medical discharge was due mostly for mental reasons. Like he saw somebody like walk. It was just like Raiders of the Lost Ark. He saw somebody walk into a propeller blade, that was spinning.
Oh, yeah.
He found, when he was a mechanic, he was finding like body parts in these planes and stuff like that from these people, and it was just like, and it really fucked him up, but it wasn't until years later, like I said, until Jimmy Carter came along and he was able to get like his full medical benefits. And because he was like maybe on like 10% at the time, because like Nixon and Ford were just, I guess they hated the veterans. They love war, but they hated the veterans, just like pretty much all these warmongers are today. But you said, okay, so you served, all right, did you serve in the Gulf War, or were you like more in the more recent?
Oh, no. I actually joined a little bit later. I was 25 when I joined the service. And this was after Mogadishu, the whole Black Hawk Down thing.
Right.
I was saying, I need to get out of Idaho. I need to get out of Boise. I need a commitment and a situation that allows me to be different than who I was becoming, staying in my hometown and what was going on with that. And, the whole Mogadishu thing, the Ranger Regiment, the 10th Mountain, and Black Hawk Down, I was going, yeah, that sounds fun. Sounds cool. Like something I want to do for my country. So I joined just a little bit after that. And, 5 years of a nice Cold War, learning a little bit of language, a little trip down to Haiti, doing a little bit of refugee work and support down in Guantanamo Bay, down in Gitmo, before they turned it into a prisoner of war camp. And then come 2001, I'm sitting in Korea, looking at Korean transcripts and translating them into English and doing the transcription, trying to develop intelligence off of this stuff. And we get news that towers got hit. Now, it was 3 more months before I was coming back stateside, but that was, my real first deployment, despite the fact that I was in Haiti with 75th Ranger Regiment for a couple of days. My first real one, long term, was that first deployment to Afghanistan in 2002. No, I wasn't a Gulf War veteran.
Okay. I mean, I have a classmate of mine, a good friend of mine, who was in like the first one. He was in the Gulf War. We're of an age where, I easily could have been, in the first one. I could have been sitting on the berm for, 6 months waiting for the order to, go across the berm, spend 4 days shooting Iraqis with tanks, and then, heading back home. But I was still firmly entrenched in the idea that I wanted to be part of the family here in Boise, do the things here at home, be involved with the people I grew up with, and so, I missed out on that one, which was funny because I actually supported some of the anti-war protests against the Gulf War, just to turn around and join the military again a little bit later is, one of these, well, it's Cold War. We're not actually out fighting and killing anybody. Little did I know. Right. Yeah, exactly. That's what a lot of people in our generation thought too. We had this kind of like this unprecedented era of peace that, and then all of a sudden here we are back in the shit again, and my dad never told me like I should either join the military or not join the military. I think what he knew that I had my own mind at that time, and at the time I was just like, I want to go to college. I want to do this other stuff, and I don't really have any interest in going over to Iraq. But I did meet up with my friend who he actually served, and this is a crazy story. He told me this not too long ago. So he served in the military. And guess who was in his I don't know if it was I can't remember if it was squad, platoon, or what it was, but in his unit. He served with Timothy McVeigh, of all people, right? Yeah,
I mean, so of all the notoriety, of all the names to have served with,
that's me name dropping Timothy fucking McVeigh. Right. So anyway, so the thing was, my buddy came here to New York, right? And he works for like some medical company now or something. I don't know, sales or something like that. Oh. We didn't really get into that because I don't care about that stuff. So we were talking about 9/11.
He wasn't selling Pfizer vaccines, was he?
No. Someplace out of Kansas. That's all I can say to protect his anonymity. But so anyway, his wife's doing something in town. And I said, all right, you know what? I'm going to take you on a tour. So I said, let's go hop on the train. We're going to go up to the Bronx, and we're going to go up to Yankee Stadium, take some pictures, whatever, do some touristy shit. So we're on the way up, and he says, and I'm talking about 9/11 to him and stuff like that. I said, you know, because I knew he'd been in the military. I knew he was in the Gulf War, and I said, what are your thoughts on that? And we were talking about 9/11 and how we both thought that, you know, there was some interesting concepts being floated around about alternative views as to what happened, but we got on the subject of he told me that he had served with Timothy McVeigh, and if I would have had a drink in my mouth, I would have done a spit take. I would have been like, what?
Oh yeah,
are you serious? And so he tells me the story. He said, yeah. So he said he was just kind of a standoffish guy. He was he said that Timothy McVeigh was anti-war too, and he's just like, he didn't know why they were there, that sort of thing. So, and then you know the whole rest of the story, like you know,
you watch everything deteriorate from there.
Yeah, the Oklahoma City bombing. That he was allegedly a part of. I say allegedly because I don't know. You know, it's with the government these days. You never can tell. You know what the truth is. But
who's a patsy? Who actually did the deed? Yeah,
exactly. I'm in the patsy camp. I'm pretty sure that he was a patsy. But it was also told that he had witnessed what had gone down in Waco too. He was like up on a hill or something, watching the whole thing go down. Have you heard that story?
I wasn't aware that Timothy McVeigh was part of that in any sense, but I know at the time when Janet Reno was taking charge of the ATF and FBI siege, they actually went to Fort Bliss and said, hey, we want some of your armored personnel carrier and some people to drive them. And it was one of those things that became one of those complete wrecks because the thing is, the Posse Comitatus prevented any of the military personnel from actually operating the armored personnel carriers that they were going to use to breach the compound. So they literally had to take Army drivers who needed to refresh FBI agents who were former Army drivers how to drive the APCs in order to do it. So I imagine there were a certain number of people who had delivered the armored personnel carriers and some of the munitions to the FBI agents, you know, who were sitting there watching to see what they were going to do with this equipment that the FBI just borrowed from the Army. So the idea that Timothy McVeigh was there watching the entire process isn't something that surprised me a whole lot. You know, if not him, there were definitely people, you know, who were there, who were from Fort Bliss or, you know, watching everything go down.
Right. And I just found it to be such a, I was not expecting that, you know. I was not expecting some sort of Timothy McVeigh origin story with my buddy coming to New York to visit me, you know. So I was taken aback. I really didn't know what to think about it at the time. But
well,
and
this is one of those things from the whole conspiracy theory, the whole aspect of what's going on, and you're watching the way things come down. You know, it's one of those things I've complained about a couple of times because the origin story of Timothy McVeigh with Waco. Okay, this was Bill Burr's FBI. This was Bill Burr's Department of Justice. Okay, Janet Reno in Waco had only assumed control of the organization like just weeks before the whole Waco incident. And this was still ATF and the FBI and Bill Burr's Department of Justice running the whole thing. And this was the Department of Justice that oversaw Ruby Ridge. So you're watching Ruby Ridge, you were watching Waco, you were watching a couple of these other high-profile government mismanagement mishaps that killed innocent people. You know, they literally documented the sniper knowingly shooting somebody's innocent wife and kid. I mean, they knew they weren't the targets. They knew who they had the gun pointed at. They knew who they were killing when they pulled the trigger, and they knew they were innocent.
Yeah.
You know, and this was Bill Burr's Department of Justice that oversaid that and said, yeah, you're good. Kill him. You know, and this was the same group that went down to Waco and did the exact same thing. 26 kids. 26 kids burned alive.
Yeah.
And your ATF agents stood there on top of their skulls, taking kill footage photos. And they made all of this stuff public. And the irony is the one organization responsible for providing oversight for the ATF and the FBI and the Department of Justice was the Senate Judicial Committee. And you know who was on the Senate Judicial Committee for both of those incidences? Senator Joe Biden.
Oh boy, that guy. Yeah. Well, he the author of the crime bill, he never met, he never met any kind of social situation he couldn't try to fuck up,
He never met an authoritarian legislation he didn't like.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Well, I mean, he was what's his name? Who's the guy? The senator? I think it was Strom Thurmond. He's a big Strom Thurmond acolyte there. So. Oh yeah, of course
he was huge.
Of course, he's going to be racist. That's the first thing you learn.
The funny thing was, you watch the procession of who Strom Thurmond was. Hey, Strom Thurmond was a diehard KKK when he first joined, when he first became. And in the process of time, as the Democratic Party morphed, so did Strom Thurmond. You actually saw him start to apologize and regret an awful lot of the things that he did over the years. And it's reached a point right now where even Strom Thurmond, where Joe Biden has exceeded the worst that Strom Thurmond had ever achieved and is still unapologetic for it. And this is one of those things where you look at the duopoly and you look at the idea of the Libertarians versus the Republicans and the Democrats, and you go, well, I can't trust the duopoly. I can't trust the Republicans. I can't trust the Democrats because they've never done anything right in my book. They've never fixed anything they broke. All they've done ever is double down. Yeah. So what are our options? Independent? Well, without independents, don't have the support. They don't have the network. They don't have the ability to reach out and say, hey, I need help with my campaign. Hey, I need an idea of how to get a message out that the Democrats or the Republicans won't allow us to get out. So you start reaching for these coalitions, and the coalitions right now are the third parties. They're the Libertarian Party. They're the Green Party. Democratic Socialists of America, even though they're still tied into the Democrats, they still have an option that's outside of regular channels. You got a couple other organizations, Socialist Party of the United States, Communist Party of the United States, Love and Peace Party, I think, is another one. It's like when you come to take a look at the size of these coalitions in relationship to the platforms and what they're talking about, the only two that are even within, a stone's throw distance of the Democrat and Republicans are the Libertarian and the Green Party. And they've both taken a real beating this last year because other people have recognized that as well. And they wanted to use the Greens and the Libertarians to launch things, that an awful lot of the established Libertarians and Greens were going, whoa. No, we didn't sign on for that. Now you got people in charge, both of the leading third parties, saying, you know what, I'm not on board with that messaging. So you're seeing the third parties take a real hit after 2020.
Well, yeah, and they're getting they're getting judges to keep them off the voter rolls too in a lot of these places.
Yeah, so that doesn't help any either.
No, that's Libertarian and Green Party too, and they're both getting fucked over like that too. That's a good segue though, because I want to talk about so I mean, I'm not a big fan of labels, because I think labels just make it easier for people to dismiss you without actually hearing about who you are. But I mean,
Oh yeah.
if you were to call yourself something like, are you a libertarian? Are you a social libertarian? I mean, how would you define that without like actually, in a few words, like how would you describe yourself?
And that's one of those things, because I'm not really a left libertarian in the same way that I'm not really a right libertarian.
Right.
I fall in that middle ground where an awful lot of anarchists would refer to themselves as mutualists. In the idea that no, the community shouldn't own everything, but at the same time, the individual should definitely own the tools that they use to create, the things that multiply their labor. Carpenter should definitely own his own carpentry tools. If a carpenter co-op were to get together in order to invest in some carpentry tools, that are collective, cool things and arrangements like that. But the idea of people who never use any of the tools or any of the resources owning a piece of that is just something that never really resonated with me. So the idea of this whole, you will own nothing and enjoy it, that is part of the process of the collective owning all the collective property, the non-private property, wasn't one of my things. But at the same time, the idea of creating a centralized capital base, like a central bank, or some sort of currency that's controlled by somebody outside of you, never really resonated with me either.
Right.
If I were to have a choice, of cryptocurrency or bullets and whiskey, I'm going to go with bullets and whiskey, because I can make my own bullets and whiskey.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't need a bank to determine how much I can actually create or exist from my own labor.
Right.
Limited amount of currency. There's only so much Bitcoin you can have. There's only so much, money you can make or create, this whole central currency thing. And it's like, well, no, because people want to buy my whiskey. I can make whiskey and I can trade that whiskey. People want to buy the bullets I make. I can make bullets. I can reload bullets and I can sell bullets. I got chickens. They lay eggs. That's a premium these days.
Yeah, instead of the goose that laid the golden egg, it's the chicken that laid the golden egg these days. I mean,
literally these days.
Literally $8. That's crazy for a dozen eggs.
But yeah, that's one of those things where it is for me. I was always a little bit too far right to be a green and a little bit too far left to be the libertarian, because there was that space right in between the two of them, that fit the mutualist and ultimately was the true goal of liberty. It was to allow the individual to define their relationship to their community, without legislation, laws, or a state creating those definitions for them. So I can go to you and say, hey, I love your broadcast. What can I do to support your broadcast? And then you go, well, a dozen eggs a week would be nice. And then,
who can afford that? Look at you, money bags.
These days, I might be able to afford a dozen a month,
Right?
This is one of those things where I'm in that point where it's like, we don't want the state defining our relationship between ourselves as individuals and our community. And we still want to be able to get the respect within the community, so the consent still matters.
Yeah.
I'm doing this because I want to, not because I have to, or because there's a legal obligation. The agreement we go into is because I want to.
Yeah.
You have something I like. In exchange, I give you something you like. Aside from the mutual adoration, clan,
Right.
But
well, I mean, is that where we're heading, though? Are we heading towards a barter system in this country? I mean, how can we do that?
Well, it's hard to say.
I mean, with 300 million people, that would be pretty hard to do. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
A lot of it depends on what goes down. Reason why is because the WEF keeps talking about this whole idea of a social credit system. You know, the idea that the money you earn from your labor can actually be locked away from your access because of something you said on a social media site, you know, or something else that you did or didn't do. So your money has a different value than other people's money because it's all based on your social value ratio. And it's like, there's going to be people who look at that and say, I can't participate in that. And they're going to find black market and gray market ways around, you know, that whole social, you know, thing. They'll find ways to go back. You know, you'll start seeing scavengers going through the junkyards trying to recycle 1970 muscle cars out of the junkyards because they won't be chipped. You know, Tesla won't be able to turn them off as you're driving down the freeway. You know, you'll start seeing people do personal initiative things, you know, like biofuels for their cars. They'll start making biodiesel, you know, start building alcohol motors for these cars instead, you know. So, you know, run your car on whiskey, you know, make the whiskey strong enough you can literally pour it in the gas tank and go.
How important would that be to be able to make shine for consumption and for transportation? Holy shit. If they're going to get to that point where they're going to be able to do something like that, I would imagine.
Well, the thing is we were at that point. We were at that point. In 1920, before Prohibition, there were alcohol motors for cars. There were batteries that ran electric cars. We had all of this tech 100 years ago.
Yeah.
We had electric cars. We had alcohol cars. We had biofuel cars. You know, and literally all of that was squashed because some dude named Rockefeller found oil.
Right. And some guy named oh God. I shouldn't have drank before the stream. But the guy who was funding Tesla at the time.
Oh yeah.
When he was JP Morgan. Well yeah, Edison.
Morgan, yeah.
Yeah, Edison.
Well,
yeah,
Edison found Tesla, and then Tesla went his own way, and J.P. Morgan was the one who, you know, funded him. But then it became an Edison versus Tesla thing, you know, and J.P. Morgan acquired all of the patent rights to everything that Tesla created, which of course was why Tesla died broke. But the thing is Tesla actually went in and repaired an awful lot of damage that Edison did, you know, to the electrical infrastructure at the time. You know?
Well, yeah, because Edison was this big fan of direct current, and it's like for batteries and stuff or whatever, for like, you know, small little appliances or something. That's all well and good, but you know, you're trying to run a city, you're trying to put lights in a city. It's not going to work. But the thing was, like, with Tesla, he had free energy. He knew how to get energy out of the ionosphere. He knew how to get energy. He was like sticking light bulbs in the ground, wireless energy flowing through the ground. This was like turn of the century, right? Oh, yeah. And it goes back to like the 70s too, when they killed the electric car back then too. We've had this technology the whole time, but these you were talking about, you know, like your Standard Oil types and all these people that, you know, just stuff that they could make money off of. And that was why J.P. Morgan pulled his funding. Because Tesla was like, I want to give this to everybody. I want this to be free. And J.P. Morgan said, nah, we need to charge people for that. And and basically that's why he lost his funding from J.P. Morgan, was because he wanted to give this shit. Yeah.
You know, that was the thing with Ma Bell. You know, the exact same process for long distance calls was the same for local calls. There was absolutely no difference in the cost from Ma Bell's perspective. But when you take a look at it, Ma Bell decided to charge an arm and a leg for the long distance calls. Now, that served two purposes. One, it created money for Ma Bell. It also restricted the amount of communication that occurred between different communities in the United States. You know, you were still now basically you had to be rich in order to afford to call your friends who were long distance, or, you know, you had the flip side of things where you were limited in your ability of communication, and you pretty much had to accept what was going on the evening news as true.
Yeah.
You know, so again, that was all back to the control issue. You know, people keep saying, "Now America's a free market. It's always been." No, dude. No, I hate to tell you this, but America's never been a free market. You know, we have never truly appreciated the idea of a market without government interference.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I mean, all right. So let's fast forward to now. So here we are in
okay.
2023.
Here we are in 2022.
And I'm starting to come around to the idea of not having a centralized government. I mean, I don't trust the government at all at this point. If I hadn't had any trust issues before this pandemic, those were all resolved over the last 3 years, or coming up on 4 years now. So, I mean, so let me ask you this. All right, so we decentralize the national government. All right, so
right.
Do we A, have regional governments around the country, or do we just let the states do whatever the hell they want to do? I mean, how do we decentralize and make it work?
And that's a really interesting perspective. One of the problems we got with an awful lot of states right now is because the state government is backed by the federal government, which means if you have a local uprising in relationship to what's going on, you know, the federal government's going to go in and they're going to interject themselves with the federal police, you know, the FBI or the ATF. And you're going to see the organizations that are against what the state is doing, you know, systematically destroyed via the same way that the Black Panthers and various other peace movements, you know, during the 70s were destroyed using FBI-based, what is it, the COINTEL, the counterintelligence programs. You know, the FBI come in and systematically disassemble these organizations that were organizing against, you know, the states. Now, we're in a situation right now where the Supreme Court of the United States has pretty much told the states they can do whatever they want. You know, they want to violate the rights of the people. The Supreme Court of the United States is basically going to sign off on it, saying, you know, the federal government can't violate the rights, but the states can. And so we're running into that situation. Now, with the decentralization, if the federal government collapses and we trust the state government to take over the responsibilities, you know, in a lot of these cases, most of the state governments are close enough, you know, that without federal backing, without federal police protection, you know, people can actually organize counter movements against state governments, you know, everything from, you know, peaceful revolution, you know, using the electoral process in a given state, right up to outright violent, you know, violence against the tyrants, depending on which degree that those tyrants currently exert control over the legislative and electoral process. Now, in some states, yeah, you know, Chicago, Illinois, you know, that has a long history of corruption where the mob literally owns most of the politicians. You know, and that's Illinois. Mob runs the government in Illinois. You know, long history. Very few people in Illinois will disagree with that. You know, sometimes they'll say, "No, we elected him honestly. At least I'm pretty sure we did." Meanwhile, their union director standing right behind them and going, "Yeah, we did."
Well, that's the thing too. I mean, as far as unions are concerned, a union is only as strong as its weakest leader. It just seems like, you know, because I'm a big fan of unions. I think people should organize, you know, but they need to choose their leaders a lot more wisely than they've been doing, because some of these, I mean, you notice like during the midterms and hell, even during like, was it 2020 when they were running for president, you know, you had all these unions where a lot of the unions were, the leaders were backing a certain candidate, but the actual people, the workers, they were like, no, we're not backing this candidate, you know. And it's just like, how do they end up choosing these poor leaders? I mean, is that like, are they chosen for them? Is that like, how does that work?
And that's part of what it is. And you take a look at one of the problems that most of the larger unions have these days, like the auto workers union and some of the others, is that the union leadership is actually crawled in bed with corporations that employ their workers. You know, so in exchange for a cut of what they're able to reduce the cost of labor, the union leadership gets, a nice little house in, Jamaica somewhere in exchange for saving the corporation costs. And this is one of those things that's become a problem in the unions, ever since Hoffa disappeared. You continue to see levels of corruption in the upper levels, and it's hard to displace them because they own the process of counting the ballots. It's like, I can't remember which Russian who said it. I don't care who votes. I care who counts the votes.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why we got an awful lot of people across the United States right now that do not trust the electoral process, because they don't trust the people who count the votes.
Yeah. I don't trust machines. I don't trust proprietary software on machines that only the owner of the company can have access to. I don't trust anything that has access to that you can plug an Ethernet cable into or a flash drive. I would say, like, for voting, we should just go back old school. Let's do all paper ballots. Get the, you hire the people to do the shit. We're going to do this right. We're going to get off these fucking these electronic machines, and, let's go to hand counting. But then again, then you also have the people who could be bought out for doing the hand counting too. Like you said, it's, I don't care. So it's like, the corruption is just so steeped in every little vein and artery. It just seems like, how do you get rid of that corruption? Because you got to get rid of the corruption. It's just like, if you ever built a house, if you ever remodeled a house or something like that, you've got to get like your rotted floorboards out. You got to get your rotted ceiling sills out. You got to get the rotten parts out before you can rebuild.
At what point do you just burn down the house and start from a fresh concrete foundation?
Right, and get the insurance money too. I'm just saying, sometimes, oopsie, insurance, hello? So, but that's the thing too. It's like, are we going to just burn the whole house down? Is the house even going to burn down? Is there going to be enough people to burn the house down? These are interesting times that we're in, and we're not quite sure, what's going to be happening next. The whole COVID shit is still, there's people trying to bring back lockdowns and, mask mandates and vax mandates and all this stuff. It's like, no, we've been through that. People, the jig is up. Everybody knows. It didn't work. The vaccines didn't work. They may have helped some older people, but I'm no doctor. I don't know, but I can read reports from people who have said that they are, been injured from these things, and and are sustaining long-term injuries. Like, so I caught COVID back in early 2020. Right. And I ended up getting 2 shots of the Moderna only because I live in New York. You can't do anything in New York unless you had the jab. Fortunately, you could still go to the grocery store and stuff like that. But even then, they were starting to horn in on that too. Just like, you're gonna have to have the. And I told my girlfriend at the time. I said, look, I do not want this. I don't even get flu shots. Because every time I get a flu shot, I get the fucking flu. So I'm like, why the fuck am I going to get a flu? Oh, so you don't get a bad flu. No, last time I got a flu shot, I got a bad flu. So it's like, okay. Yeah. And so I got the shots, right? The first one wasn't bad, but the second one was just a bitch. Because when I had the actual COVID before I had the shot, I lost taste and smell for like a couple of days, and I was fatigued for a week, and that was it. Didn't have any respiratory problems, didn't have anything like that. I got the second shot of that fucking Moderna, aches and pains. I thought I had the fucking flu. I thought I was going to die. I'm just like, well, what's the point in this shit? What's the fucking point? So it's like, it's shit like that they're going to be pushing again. Because, they get on that horse, they're going to beat that dead horse. They're going to keep beating it because there's still people that's supporting these dumb notions of what's going on. And I don't really give shit if I get pulled off of YouTube because of this, because people need to hear this. This is some true shit. And I'm glad that you're on here because you understand this stuff. That, you know, personal freedoms like that were just totally just thrown out the door, and without so much as any kind of like.
It was ridiculous, the entire thing. You know, they made it a mandate. You know, while the government didn't say you had to go down and get the shot, they made sure that every employer knew that they were going to shut down if their employees didn't get the shot.
Right.
You know, so there was this whole coercion thing. You had the choice of either you stopped working for 2 years or you got the shot.
Yeah.
You know, so we saw that entire thing go through. And during that time, they made it so that you couldn't sue the vaccine producers for vaccine injury.
Still can't. You still can't sue them.
Still can't.
Yeah, they'll throw it out.
So there's literally proof right now of people who have died and their relatives can't sue Pfizer for the malpractice or the abuse.
No.
You know, so exactly when does that break? Yeah. When do we, as a society, as a culture, look at the fact that we were forced to accept a mandate that killed family, friends, and neighbors, and the people who forced us into that situation will never be held accountable?
No.
Never. Matter of fact, right now, most of them are living in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
Simply because living in America is too dangerous for them right now.
Yeah, no shit. Well, and they've been getting away with this stuff for decades too. This is just newer, more heinous shit. And it's more of like the ballsiness of them saying, okay, we can get away with this because we've set the table, right? We've made sure that employers in these liberal cities, at least, make sure that you have the card, or else no job, you know, that kind of thing. You know, and it
wasn't even the liberal cities. The mandates came down under Trump. You were looking at red states that were mandating it because Trump said it was okay to make the mandate.
Yeah. And the Democrats backed him up. As much as they hated Trump.
The Republicans started this shit.
Yeah. It was all under Trump. Everybody forgets that. You know?
Yeah. They want to blame Biden. They want to blame liberal cities. But the thing, it started under Trump.
Right. That was the thing. And the liberal city, it started under Trump, and the liberal cities ran with it, right? Because they were so scared. You know, it was just all this fear. There's just so, like, liberals. They are so scared. Okay. There's like scared wet cats in a thunderstorm outside a house. That's what liberals are. Just every little thing, something moves in the bushes, just, you know, everything. And it's just, it's disgusting. And they try to do this like virtue signaling shit, like, oh, you should get the shot because it's to protect others. No, it's not. It's for your own peace of mind, you scared piece of shit. Anyway, sorry, had a little too much of the old grandpa's cough medicine. Truth comes out.
This was one of those things. You know, I was looking at that, and before it was actually mandated, I'm looking, you know, if they actually incentivize this, if they pay people to go, you know, to be part of the test experiment, I'm willing to go be part of the test base. I'm willing to go get the shot, you know, and to determine whether, because I'm at this point in my life. But it's like when there was practically no test base for what was going on, no human experiments being notified, people being told, hey, $500, you know, incentive in order to be part of the test to verify that this is going to be healthy for the larger population. No, you never heard about any of that. It went straight from, we got an experimental vaccine that we believe will work. FDA's approved it. It is now mandated. You know, we're going back and we're looking and we're finding out that the human experiments that they claimed happened never met the requirements for FDA approval.
Right.
So it's like, where are we with this stuff? Because people are dying. We know people are dying. You know, you see the memes all over the place. You know, medical professionals all over the world stymied. You know, people are dropping dead because of something that happened over the last 2 years. But it's not what you think.
We definitely know it's not what you think. We don't know what it is, but we definitely don't know. We definitely know that it's not what you think, and we know what you think it is. The old skeet.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the thing too.
And now you got all of the WEF guys, all of them, getting ready for their little big adventure in Davos. And then all of them are doing the last minute cancellations, just like certain people decided not to take a trip on the Titanic, and certain people decided not to go to work in the Twin Towers on a certain day. And other people have decided, and it's like, why are all the people who want to do the evil things that invited all the people who are against the evil things to this summit suddenly not showing up at the summit where the people who are going to disagree with them are going to anyway?
That's funny how that works out like that, right? Like, right? That's what I was going to ask you about the whole Davos thing, because I know, what's his name? Colonel Klink's not going to be there, or at least not for the first day. I don't know what his, Klaus Schwab. He's always Hogan. He should have like a monocle, and you should have like a guy named Schultz next to him the whole time, where it's like, roast. I see nothing. Little Hogan's Heroes for you oldsters that are watching this. You're welcome.
Oh yeah,
for that
reference. You're dating me here, man.
I know, right? I remember
waking up at midnight to watch the Hogan's Heroes colorized reruns.
You can't do Hogan's Heroes nowadays, so you could they get canceled. They would get canceled just for even thinking about that idea of doing a comedy about Nazis.
Well, the funny thing was, you step back and you take a look. Hogan's Heroes was one of those that was really forward at the time, because despite the racial makeup, they had a black character that was very central to a lot of the stories.
Yeah.
And you were seeing an awful lot of that in the 50s and 60s. You were seeing black characters, and then it's like in the 80s they just vanished.
Yeah. Well, you had Mr. T on the A Team, though. So you kind of
Mr. T.
A Team was pretty good,
but it's like you started seeing more of them as caricatures and entertainers than you actually saw them as the straight men. And you didn't see them in the role. Okay. What was the one? Trying to think some of the roles that Samuel L. Jackson has reprised. In the remakes of the 70s blaxploitation films.
Shaft. Yeah, he was Shaft.
Shaft. Yeah. Shaft. You had a couple others. Foxy. They've done a remake of that one. Some of those others from the 70s where you actually saw an awful lot of black actors as part of the Screen Actors Guild. And the Black Actors Guild that was running parallel to that up until that point where they did the merge. So that was one of the, you thought in the 70s, it's like we're past racism, we're past bigotry, we got black heroes on the screen. The Warriors, as cheesy as that film was, half of the band of the Warriors were black. You saw that cooperation, that I think Escape from New York. These were things I grew up on, and I'm thinking we're still that.
Well, yeah, I mean, think about it today. It's just same thing. It's just like all these shows that are on now that are just crap because the writing is crap, and all they care about is just like this quote unquote message for a modern audience. And it's like, you know what? A lot of the modern audience is not into this kind of shit. I mean, to have diversity, I think is great, but to have diversity just for the sake of having diversity and it doesn't really fit into what you're doing, like if you had I don't know if this is gonna sound bizarre, but if you had like a World War II movie and all the Nazis were Jewish or black, right? But you got diversity, but that wasn't the way it was. The Germans were white, right? So, you know, it's like, I understand, like, okay, somebody is not getting a shot at a role or something like that because of their race or something like that. Yeah, I think that's fucked up, and that shouldn't be the way. But at the same time, you shouldn't go full on to all the way to the other side of the craziness and just stick these characters in there just for the sake of them being diverse, and it just has nothing to do with it, you know, especially like with these reboots and stuff that's been going on, and they're trying to reimagine these shows into something that's happened today. It's like, no, dude, you're rebooting stuff from like the 70s and 80s and like the early 90s. It was a totally different time. You can't do that kind of treatment with these kind of shows like that. So anyway, but it just seems like that kind of interjection of, you know, I hate to say it, like wokeness, but I mean, there's being awake, like knowing what's going on. There's that kind of awake. And then there's like this social wokeness where it's just like, I'm trying to jam an agenda down your throat because I feel like I've been oppressed this whole time and you need to hear. It's like, everybody needs to be free and everybody needs to be equal.
Well, the thing you're talking about, like, yeah,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Cutting in it. But the thing is right now, the whole woke crowd, you know, they got their eyes wide open, but they got their fingers in their ears. You know, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. But it's like they want to talk about being colorblind, and they want to talk, you know, but they're not taking any input. They're not understanding how screwed up their messaging is getting in the process of them trying to communicate it, because they're not listening to the feedback. You know, it's like one of those things right now. We got issues in America where, you know, I actually tweeted about today, you know, Martin Luther King, you know, his thing was, you know, his realization in Birmingham jail that it wasn't, you know, the KKK that was the biggest problem to the advancement of civil rights in the United States. It was the moderate liberals, or the white liberals, I can't remember the exact phrasing, it was the white liberals that represented the problem. Those who were interested in order over justice that prevented the advancement of civil rights. You know, and it's like today I tweeted, it's like, what represents the greatest damage to race relations in the United States today? You know, are we talking white supremacy? Are we talking white guilt? Are we talking white fear? White fright? You know, or is it just the fact that we got an awful lot of people that are determined to stick to the status quo, whatever that imaginary status quo is, where their security through the persecution of a people they don't identify with is enough to secure their place in this world? You know, it's like, and unfortunately, it's one of those things where I'm looking at an awful lot of people and I'm going, you're scared a black man might actually be better at this job than you are.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's, you hear this, like, this ridiculousness, like, you know, because it is true that I think, like, with Hispanics and black people, they will soon overtake the number of white people that are in this country, right? And I mean, it's a matter of time. If it'll be soon.
Oh my God.
You know,
but that's one of those things. Okay, the United States of America. Yeah, the United States of America, right now, you got a whole bunch of white fright folks out there calling people race traitors because they want to have relationships to somebody they're attracted to who just doesn't happen to have the same heritage as them. Yeah. And it's like, dude, between the 275 years of the rape of slaves, of the rape of indigenous people, you know, there is probably less than 5% of citizens of the United States that can claim purity, great, that the one drop won't have them put put on boxcars. You know, I look back at my heritage. I got mixed heritage from 4 different continents, pretty much. You know, 23andMe. You know, I know damn well anybody starts talking about race purity, they're already got me lined up for a boxcar. You know, it's like, dude, this whole thing of what is white, what is black, what is, you know, it's history. It's done. It should no longer be a thing in the United States, because none of us are pure enough to meet blood quantum or 1 drop or whatever.
Well, we're a melting pot. I mean, that's what America's. But we've been proud of that since our since our inception, that we're a melting pot. You know, and to be racist in America is just ridiculous, because everybody comes from different places. We're not all from here. You know, we're definitely, some of us are not indigenous to this country. Some of us came from Europe. The good majority of us came from Europe. And,
right.
You know, it just boggles my mind how that's still a thing with people, how they can be scared of another person because of the color of their skin. Like, oh, it's going to take my job, or this, you know, these certain laws and stuff are good. You know what? It takes away from people trying to be a better person for society and for themselves to a certain extent. You know, when you're worried about these distractions that are coming in, and you know, and I'm not trying to belittle anybody's, like, you know, what they've gone through in their life. You know, nobody's a monolith, right?
Oh, no.
Everybody's different.
We don't do that.
We've all, right.
Yeah.
But to a certain point, though, you got to say, hey, look, we need to start focusing on the important shit, because this other stuff, I'm sorry, it may be important to you, but for society as a whole, this shit is extraneous, and we need to start working on. We need to rebuild our infrastructure as a country. We need to find a way to make sure that our citizens get health care, and not affordable health care. Now health care, you shouldn't have to pay for health care. That is the most ridiculous shit I have ever heard in my life. Because if you're trying to get people to be productive in this country, if you're saying like people are lazy or they're not working or whatever, give them free health care, and you will be amazed how productive this country will be. Just to give them health care. Oh, yeah. Just give them health care. I don't want to worry about, like, if I have a heart attack or something, I gotta, like, fortunately I have a hospital right down the street. But if I had God forbid, if I had a heart attack or something like that, I would get out and crawl on this sidewalk down to this fucking hospital than to call an ambulance and spend like $10,000 on just a half block ride to the thing. You know, it's just, I don't know, the whole for-profit medical thing. We could have a whole night on that, but anyway. Well,
that's a huge discussion, and truth is that's one of those things that's really interesting when you're talking in libertarian circles about what access to healthcare should actually be. But the thing is right now, with the amount of fraud, waste, and abuse that goes in through the way we subsidize the healthcare system, you know, and the fact that right now we pay more in administrative fees than we pay medical professionals who are responsible for diagnosing people and keeping people healthy. You know, if we were to remove the amount of fraud, waste, and abuse in the American system, that would amount to 11% of our GDP. Could you imagine returning 11% of the GDP to the nation?
Yeah.
Not being wasted on administrative costs? If you could reduce the cost of your healthcare by that much, and then you turn around and take the 7% of the GDP that we throw $1 trillion every year to the military. You know, if we were to take that and reinvest it into our healthcare and our infrastructure, you know, independent of the subsidies, you know, not as in stealing, but just because people, through the goodness of their heart, the employers are working with medical professionals, making sure that medical professionals are getting properly compensated for their skill set, for their ability, you know, in doing their job, maintaining the health of their workforce.
Yeah.
You know, rather than running it through these death panel HMOs, you know, and insurance scams that say, well, you're too far along for us to justify spending the money to try and make you better. Here's your hospice care for the next 3 months while they morphine you to death.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Well, it just seems like a hypocrisy to me. And it just seems like the same hypocrisy when they talk about, all lives matter. Like, when they want to get rid of abortion, but then when the kid's born, they're like, well, fuck that kid. Sorry, you're on your own, champ. Hope you can feed yourself. Hope because it's like they think like medical situations end once the kid is born. It's like, no, that's just the beginning. If we're going to really
what are we
take care
talking
of
about?
society,
The domestic supply of infants here?
I know,
the
right?
idea that, we don't have a proper supply of infants for the adoption, profile. But the thing is the kids, okay, this is going to be an extremely callous take on this. Okay, but the kids that the laws are prohibiting from being aborted aren't the kids that these people want to adopt. They want their little blue-eyed, blonde-haired baby girl, baby boy. They want to be able to adopt and raise the next race of super beings. They want their designer child. Yet here they are creating situations where these are young women who are now forced to have kids in a culture that ultimately isn't going to accept their kid because for some reason the circumstances around this kid's conception and or birth makes them unacceptable to the adoption process. They aren't achieving what they think they're achieving with the legislation they're passing. They're just making the situation worse.
Yeah, definitely. Joe, it's 9:18, brother. I told you this hour was going to go by. I even kept you later. I kept you after school.
You even kept me late, man. You kept me, that's all right. Truth is I'm used to an awful lot of the long form stuff. I've sat in conversations like this for up to 4 hours before, which is fun. That's not your schedule. Your guys, your team's used to seeing you talk for about an hour. But, this is good. I liked it. I was glad I came on tonight, Uncle.
I'm glad you came on too. I mean, I've been wanting to. I mean, the first time I had any interaction with you is when Jimmy and I were doing the news, and then I think we were doing elections, and I think Idaho was. It was like primaries or something like that, and you hopped on the stream.
Yeah,
I was like,
primaries.
I said, I like that cat. That guy's pretty cool. And I've heard you before. I've watched your show before. Of course, I'm gonna plug your show, Cup of Joe, on KRTD, Kerberos Media. Check your local listings for times in your area, as they say, or they used to say in the TV guide. But he's got a great show, and like as far as like if I'm gonna get my information about like where I think people should be going, like I like your takes, like I understand where you're coming from. You've especially like the anti-war stance, because you were in the military, you understand what it was like, you understand what orders means, you understand what this, the top, from the top all the way down, you end up in these situations where it's like, the military's making these, suspect choices and stuff, and for what nefarious reasons we have no idea. I'm not hating on the military folks. I don't want anybody to get twisted like that. I mean, I am a firm fan of veterans. I think our veterans should be taken care of. If you're willing to go, fight for imperialism, the least we can do is take care of you when you get home, even if you don't think you're fighting for imperialism. That's another thing too. I mean, we could get into a concept about like, what is it called? Propaganda in the military, how they tell you all this shit.
Oh yeah. Propaganda,
and then you get over there and it's like, because I've seen videos more recently. These I call them kids. Well, they're kids. I mean, we're old guys. Mm-hmm. They're kids. And this one kid, I remember it was this one video. He was going around. It was like he had like his phone or something. He was recording everybody. And he says, "If you could talk to your recruiter right now, what would you tell him?" And it seemed like every one of them to a T said, "Go fuck yourself. I hate you. I wish you'd never been born. If I had a time machine, I'd come back and kill you as a child." Shit like that. It was just like all this stuff. Like they felt like they were sold a bill of goods, and to agree, because the patriotism worked for a while, but now we figured out it's imperialism. We don't need $800 and something billion to defend the homeland. We need $800 billion to defend the empire. That's what that's for, and they're not gonna tell you that because that's bad press.
No. Yeah, it is. It's very bad press. We are literally spending $1 trillion a year to support the empire of the United States. 80 colonies around the world. We call them countries, we call them sovereign nations. But at the end of the day, we have military forces in 80 countries around the world that are effective colonies. The sun never sets on the American empire.
Exactly. Right? It was the British Empire. Now it's the American Empire. And as many times as they want to say, oh, it's for freedom, it's to protect our values, they hate us for our freedoms. Guys like us, we've been through that. You hear Gen X is the ones. Everybody hates Gen X because we're the only ones that are telling the truth about shit. We're telling you the shit that we went through back in the day, and the propaganda that we've heard. And now that we're older and we know better, it's like we're trying to help these next generations. Like, look, and unfortunately, it's working because a lot of this. I'm in some ways I'm really proud of some of these millennials and Gen Z and beyond that. It seem like they're getting to the point they're finally figuring out, oh, this is bullshit. I didn't think it was
some
bullshit,
of those literal Gen Xers actually know what they're talking about.
What? It even smells like bullshit. I am totally just, thank you, Gen X. You're welcome. We're here to help, whether you like it or not. So, but listen, all right. So what I want to do at some point, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to speak for Jimmy on this. I'm pretty sure she would do this. I don't know how much of a night owl or an early bird you are, but we want to get you on the secret show sometime in the future, and we'll just have a blast. And then we can have long form stuff, because this is more of the fancy show. This is kind of like the fancy. We kind of keep it to like maybe an hour and a half, and we don't do like a lot of the silly stuff. Stuff like like rim shots and crickets and saying
bong rips.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
What the fuck? Yeah, stuff like that. We save that for the late night. So yeah, Les Bones is right. This is the bougie show.
The bougie show.
We're not
Where's
bougie.
The show for the proles, man. We want the shows for the proles.
This ain't the
not
bougie
for
show.
People on the dole. No bougie here. Get rid of the dole and the bougie. We're gonna focus on the proles, the working class. Make it happen, man.
This is the boogie show. This ain't the bougie show. This is the boogie show. Because on this show, we boogie. Joe, thank you so much. Tell people what you got going on, what you got coming up, and where people can find you, all that good stuff.
Oh, let's see. I actually got a couple of things going on now. Kind Idaho, at kindidaho.org. We talked a little bit about that. That's legalization for medical marijuana in the state of Idaho. And this is specifically patient advocacy. This is about making healthcare affordable for people. Warren's got the site up there right there. And, so the ability for people to grow their own medicine, grow it in their backyard, get off of the HMO cycle of, 10 different drugs, each one to cure the side effects from the drug before it, grow your own medicine, get yourself clean of pharmacore. So that's one of my big projects. In addition to that, anti-war efforts, pro-peace, and I'm not talking things like the Ron Paul revolution. I'm talking about an evolution. We're not getting stuck in the orbit around, new boss, same as the old boss, as the Who used to put it.
Right.
We're actually talking about getting rid of the bosses altogether. Evolution, get out of these cycles of abuse that we've got ourselves caught in empire. So there's those efforts going on. And of course, my latest and greatest is I've actually been asked to participate in the committee for exploratory committee for a presidential candidate.
Really?
So I'm getting involved in that process here in the state of Idaho, looking at making sure that he's got a voice here so that he can be heard and, prep for the messages that are coming down the line. And a lot of this is about inclusivity. It's about creating opportunities by eliminating the fraud, waste, and abuse that right now is the government of the United States empire. You know, so look for me. You got Idaho ID Joe at Idaho. That's my Twitter handle. You can find me there. Facebook, Cup of Joe. Currently working on updating my website and getting a new domain name for some of the things that I got coming up, and that's coming. But yeah, and Kind Idaho. You know,
right on.
Now's the time for change, and it's better to start prepping for it now than waiting for the change after it's too late to do anything.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. We like I said, going back to the metaphor of the house. I'd rather, I don't want to burn the house down, but if we got to, if it's just too infested with termites, if it's too much rotten wood, let's burn it down. You know, and we'll build something
Make
better.
the shed livable for a little while, and then once the house is burned down, come back and rebuild something better.
We'll keep a nice little trailer out back while we're rebuilding the house, so at least we'll have a little place to keep our shit in. So you know, you always have a place to keep
we'll
your
go
shit.
pick up a nice fifth wheel for this, and you know, call it good.
Right on.
We'll go from that for a little bit. You remember the hobos of the 1930s? You know, everybody running the rail line. You know, it's like, get on the rail lines, go to where the work is, get off, do some work, put together a little scratch, you know, stick it someplace safe so you can find it when it's time to actually settle down and work returns to where you want to settle. You know, but we, you know, 1930s, it's coming back. Yeah. You know, be prepared to pick up and move and find your community. Find a community that's ready to accept you, that's ready to help you, you know, achieve and become your best self. Again, that's one of those things: family, friends, and community. As long as you got those three, you can make anything happen.
I think you know, people like us, you know, the like-minded folks, and even folks that don't really speak their minds about a lot of things. I think we can all agree that, yeah, like, you know, our health, having health care in a country that's supposedly supposed to be the greatest country in the world, we should have health care. We shouldn't have to worry about healthcare. We should be worried about more important. We should be worried about making this world a better place for everybody. Not imposing our will on anybody, but being the actual caretakers of the planet, taking care of the planet, but at the same time also taking care of the people and making sure that if we ever do make it to the Star Trek future, you know, they went, I mean, if you've ever watched Star Trek, that's like they went through a lot of shit to get to that Star Trek, that Star Trek future. And I'm unfortunately, I'm pretty sure we're going to have to go through like a lot of trials by fire to get to that point. But I can say I'm confident that eventually we're going to get there, you know, but it's like people like you and others who have good ideas, you know, who are, you know, pretty level-headed. I think there's too many crazies out there running the show. I think we need more level-headed people. I'm sorry you lost your congressional race. I wish you had one, because we need more people like you, you know, representing people like us. So, Joe, I appreciate everything, you know, your service to the country, of course, but also, you know, your service to people in this country, and the things that you do and the message that you put out. I really appreciate what you do, brother. And I can't wait to get you on here again. We'll do it. We'll do it a little bit more longer next time. So we can get into like the meat of some stuff too. So hang on just a second. Let me just say goodbye to everybody here, and then I'll give you a proper goodbye. So what the fuck? Nobody told you to do that, but somebody told you to do this. Beat up the old man. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Oh, well, he's got good health care. Fuck him. He'll be all right. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming out this evening. This is a great show. If you're watching this later, too, welcome. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to go to Kerberos Media and subscribe to them. That's where you can find Joe Evans on there. Cup of Joe. Great show. Great guy. Idaho Joe. We love him to death. And everybody just have a great night. Be safe. Wash your ass. Keep it clean, because you never know when you got to go to the doctor without medical. It's bad enough that you don't have health insurance. It's even worse when they say, "Oh, dirty ass, get him out of here." Anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm a little drunk. Thanks, Joe. Everybody, peace. We'll see you next time.